There we go. Truth in advertising.
How do you reinvigorate the legendary VW Golf Cabriolet? Well, with jaw-dropping engineering overhead instead of a canvas rag. But can that one thing outweigh all this car does rather badly? Let's drive the 2012 VW EOS and check the tech. It costs more than any VW should, looks too much like every Jetta does, and drives like an overpowered circus car might. But if you want the most number of roof styles in one car, this isn't on your list. It is your list.
Now this is why you buy a Volkswagen EOS. Watch what happens. Here comes the most amazing piece of automotive machinery rising up out of the bowels of this thing. You've got the following. Your overhead rails, a glass moonroof is tucked in there, a glass backlight is tucked in there, and it's all going to work around that rear quarter panel that also lifts up to clamshell this whole thing into availability. By the way, this is the only retractable in the world that also has a moving glass moonroof. Pretty slick.
The top is a wonder, but you'll also wonder what you're going to do without a trunk. Much of the space is taken up by this folding wind blocker thing in what looks like a huge Domino's delivery bag. Make room for the Cinesticks in the cabin.
Now inside the EOS, it's a pretty standard VW arrangement. You've seen this kind of gauge cluster, and we've seen this head unit before. Kind of chintzy on the screen size, but let's check out what's driven behind it. You turn the center controller here, which is rotate and click, and it gets you through various icons that pop up as you go there. There's nothing wrong with it, it just doesn't really make any sense. There's nothing about a hemispherical array that aids my navigation of these things. The map is pretty good quality though, and as you can see, you've got several views. This 3D view is quite nice. You've also got the usual 2Ds. Street names are nice and clear, and the rendering and the dot pitch is also nice. Again though, on a small screen. If I want to hit those buttons, that's a little too small, but it's right there, I want to do it. They should have bumped those up in size. Oh, do you notice what's missing here as I go in and out of the map? Yeah, traffic. A car this price ought to have that. Let's go to the media options now. You've got two buttons for media, band and media button itself. Band is obviously which radio band you're listening to, AM, FM, or Sirius satellite radio. No HD radio here, by the way. If I go to my media choices, those two are on a little carousel. CD, single optical slot up here. SD card right along here, that incredibly popular media format. Aux jack lives right here. MDI is the multimedia device interface. In this case, a pigtail connected for an iPhone or iPod Touch. And Bluetooth audio along with Bluetooth hands-free calling, though I was able to get them to work about 50% of the time. Getting in and out of this car with a Droid 2 paired to it is hit and miss. You never know if they're going to find each other again. My last gripe's the volume knob. It makes me nuts for some reason that it's got the universal on-off indicator on it, which looks like an indicator of where you are in volume, but it isn't because this is a universal rotator. It goes around and around 100 times. I kept looking at it thinking that's where my volume was, but it doesn't tell you that. You do have a set of good steering wheel controls, quite elaborate here for getting through various menus, phone calls, voice command, which is for the Bluetooth setup and Bluetooth streaming media only, not for nav. And a back button echoed here, like you have here, like you often have on the screen. A lot of back buttons in this car. They should have applied that to the whole design, but we'll get to that later. I will give VW this. In an open-top car, you want good seat heaters. This car has got them. 3 levels, from roast to parboil to tolerable by a human's ass. Plenty of heat. And whatever you're listening to, once you find it, comes out of 8 speakers around the cabin, and there aren't any upgrades on this unless you go to what they call the executive trim car, and that has a Dyne audio system. No rear camera available on this vehicle, only park distance sensors front and rear. Again, a little chintzy for a car in this price class. One transmission, a DSG. This is a dual clutch sequential automated manual. Pretty elaborate stuff, so that helps to build this car's placement in the market. You've got a standard Tiptronic gate. Pull it back to drive, one more for sport behavior, or back to drive and over to the right to get your shiftability. Now every EOS has the same stuff in the engine bay, regardless of which trim level you get. This 2-liter side-saddle inline-4 with intercooled turbocharging and direct injection. There's a lot of good stuff there. If it's a Ford, they call it EcoBoost. In the VWs, they call it TSI. Your numbers are 200 horse, 207 foot-pounds of torque. Gets this relatively dense small car up to 60 in 7.3 seconds. Remember, there's a lot of weight in that top apparatus. And the mileage is also pretty good, 22-29. Doesn't quite propel this car into the top echelon of fuel sippers, but still efficient. All right, there are two fundamental places where this car falls down flat on its face. The first is something called Cowell Shake. That's when you've got a convertible with the top open, and as you're driving over anything but a glass smooth road, the car's kind of doing this, kind of twisting longitudinally. You see the cowl go like so. Dead giveaway is to look in your rearview mirror and see it bouncing all over the place. Even see it here in the header on top of the windshield. My 69 Ford convertible does that, but it's a 69 Ford. The other problem in this car is wheel spin. That's the sort of ungainly equivalent of a burnout, but it's when a front-wheel drive car does it, and it's not cool. It's just slippery. It's a real bad thing that front-wheel drive cars used to do, like back in the 80s when they were new. Again, shouldn't happen today. Those two things, and perhaps something to do with the weight distribution or the sheer weight of this car with the top, I'm not entirely sure, lead it to miss most of that Volkswagen joie de vie that I love about their cars. But of course, as I'm telling you all this, I'm loving the fact that I've got this wide open car that I know I can button up into a hardtop and also roll back the glass roof if I want to. You buy this car for the top.
Bottom line, the EOS isn't worthy of being VW's most expensive car. It just makes you want the Golf Cab to come back, which it is, but not to the US, making this guy that much harder to take.
Okay, let's price our 2012 VW EOS Lux trim. This is the middle car, by the way. 38 grand base. That includes destination charge. Now, there aren't any tech options to speak of, although they think there is. There's a thing called the tech package. It's actually a lighting package. It gives you bi-xenon, adaptive front steering headlights, and headlamp washers. But I don't call that a tech package. I call that a headlamp package. I wouldn't buy the car with it or without it.